Hi, I'm Noah Garcia, and this is my Impact for the Future presentation for HC 401 Senior Seminar. The title of my presentation is Art, Essential and Underfunded. To begin, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on myself and my positionality. I'm an honors, obviously, undergraduate student, and I'm pre-graduate school. I'm white. Here at Commerce, I'm a liberal studies major, and I'm working on my photography minor. And I'm also working on the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion certificate offered by the College of Innovation and Design. As you may have guessed, I'm an artist, and my artist focus is on place and space in a rural urban setting, thinking about time and temporality within structure and setting, and the reclamation of by nature. So that's really complicated. Basically, what I do is I find old and abandoned spaces within rural areas, and I photograph them in artistic ways in order to bring out their history and their aesthetic. I'm queer, and I'm from East Dallas, more specifically Terrell, if you guys know where that is. Not a lot of people are from, or not, some people aren't from that area, so it's easier just to say East Dallas. Puts it into perspective. To begin, I'll give a little bit of context on public art. So when people usually think of public art, they think of something like this. A monument, a bronze statue, usually glanced at. Maybe people read the plaque, maybe they don't. You look at it, you walk around it, it's gone within your memory within 5 minutes. This photograph is from 1914, and this statue is actually in front of the White House. It's the Andrew Jackson Equestrian statue, and it was erected in 1853. So this concept of public art being monument has been around for a very, very, very long time, and we kind of grow numb to it. Thinking even bigger, it's impossible not to recognize this iconic sculpture, the Statue of Liberty, of course. And these sculptures are so ingrained into our minds that we tend to overlook them as works of art, even if they are iconic landmarks. They have like great historical meaning, but usually are skipped over when we're thinking of artistic value. But public art is not stagnant, and art is everywhere. From large cities to small towns, most have at least one piece of public art that enhances the space that that art is in. Additionally, not all public art is permanent, which can actually increase the draw and spectacle of the event and the space. One such temporary yet famous piece was this, The Gates by Christo and Jean-Claude. Christo and Jean-Claude specialized in temporary art. They were French artists. They worked with temporary art because they wanted to, quote, endow the works of art with a feeling of urgency to be seen and the love and tenderness brought by the fact that they will not last, end quote. Basically, because something is temporary, it has more of a draw, it's more attractive because of the temporality of the piece. The gates consisted of 7,503 fabric panels that were attached to vinyl gates with steel bases. They were all 16 feet tall, and they varied in width from 5 foot 6 inches to 18 feet in width. The gates stood out amongst the late winter landscape of Central Park in New York City in February 2005. The project was up for 16 days and then was taken down, and the gates were recycled. This is a really short amount of time, especially for something as massive as an art project as this. Incredibly temporary. The project had over 4 million people visit and walk the trails underneath the gates. Something really important to recognize is that the piece was fully funded by the artists themselves, who sold works and concepts beginning in 1979 to pay for the piece. If you're a Dallasite or familiar with the city of Dallas, you may recognize this iconic sculpture, which is visible near the Jewel Hotel off of Main Street. This work of art was purchased by the hotel as an addition to its collection of artworks. It's titled The Eye, and it was constructed by Chicago multimedia artist Tony Tassett. He modeled it after his own eye, and it brings not only a topic of conversation and a point of interest to the surrounding area, but now it has the Dallas Art Fair's closing soiree named after it, the Eyeball. It actually is being used as a sculpture space for the Dallas Art Fair currently, which is happening in the present time right now. The piece was originally funded by the Chicago Loop Alliance, which is a group of businesses that funds events and pop-up artwork to the area. And lastly, here's a site that may be more familiar to all of us here. Created through a partnership with the City of Commerce, TAMUC, and the Dr. Pepper Snapple Group, the mural was painted in June of 2014, and it drew about 200 attendees to the dedication. The wall itself was donated by a local businessman, Kenneth Parker, and Dr. Pepper paid for all of the supplies needed to complete the project. As part of the agreement, no one could paint over it for 10 years, ending in 2024, next year. These works, temporary or permanent, do much to add to the spaces that they're located within. They invite one to either walk within a space, such as Central Park, to see it anew, invite retrospection with a giant eyeball looking right back at you, or simply speak to the history of a small town and revitalize an old brick wall. Public art has many benefits, such as community engagement. When communities have access to public art spaces, typically the said works of art become places to gather around, whether that is a statue, a mural, or another such piece. Citizens can support the artist who created the piece and the area, and become more interested in learning more about art because of this increased awareness that art projects and programs exist. Art can also have an effect on increased public safety. When art is used in ways that can increase public awareness of their surroundings and add to people feeling included in civic planning, they tend to feel safer in their cities. In 2018, a case study was done on the Marcus Garvey Youth Clubhouse, analyzing how arts and culture programming for young people could be used to reimagine and reform community safety. In said research, it was found that engaging with collectives of youth within communities and responding to their needs by authorizing them to design and program a public space both fostered economic opportunities and improved perceptions of neighborhood public safety. They did this by creating a space where youth could gather and feel comfortable, making it artistic, and they also painted murals on crosswalks so that pedestrians could have increased awareness of these crosswalks and thus not get hit by cars. Public art can also have effects on mental health, benefits, of course. Public art can improve mental health by promoting system change, by sharing undervalued ideas, and by having programmatic interactive activities. In London, in the UK, a survey found that 84% of respondents believed that participating in public art programs on a regular basis improved their well-being. Public art can also speak to a wide variety of disciplines and backgrounds, and artists themselves can be incredibly diverse. With this said diversity, public art exhibitions and programs can allow for access to many different perspectives, leading to civil engagement and healthy discourse. Obviously, when artists are given professional opportunities to share their art and their message and are paid to create meaningful and engaging works that speak to communities, it's an amazing opportunity for them, adding to their portfolios and changing their lives, and their work can change the lives of others. Lastly, when local businesses decide to fund local public art projects near their businesses, they not only support the above-mentioned benefits, but they also create spaces where people can feel increased excitement because of the installment of public art projects. This excitement is increased when projects are temporary or rotate out, as there's always something new to draw people to the area where the businesses reside. In a survey given by IPSOS Public Affairs in December of 2015 to a population of over 3,000, 89% of Americans agree that art education is an essential component of a well-rounded education, and that there are many benefits to having accessible arts, such as public art, but also art education in general. Art education can support intellectual growth. A study by Gardner et al. Revealed that math and reading scores of first graders improved after 7 months in instruction in music and visual arts programming, as art classes support the development of spatial, kinesthetic, interpersonal, and intrapersonal intelligences. Art is an inherently emotional practice, and as such, students within art education learn to self-actualize what they feel and transform the emotions that they feel into works of art. Additionally, art helps to promote sociological growth by giving insights into poetic thinking and the embodiment of living. However, even with all of these benefits of public art and art education, the arts are undervalued and underfunded. This is something that I'm very passionate about and something that I want to assist in fixing. So to give some context, how are the arts funded? Though very much intertwined, public art education and public art projects are funded differently. Public art projects are usually funded by the government, in particular by the National Endowment for the Arts. This federal branch assists with all areas of the arts, from music to theater to photography, public art, performance, writing, you name it. Artists and nonprofits can apply for funding and grants through this organization, which allocates around $160 million annually. Texas also has another similar organization, the Texas Commission on the Arts. The TCA funds grants and artists within Texas. When artists receive funding from the Texas Commission on the Arts, it gives them notoriety and a seal of approval that can help them gain broader support. Funding can also, albeit more rarely, come from private organizations or donors. Public art education, on the other hand, is funded by the schools that the programs and classes are held at. In K through 12, art credit classes are considered non-core and are funded by the general school district. At a collegiate level, depending on the university, arts can be funded by departments or, in some cases, fees. This is the case at TAMUC, where many art programs are funded by the student service fee, but this can have some downsides. So there are barriers to funding within arts. In particular, the National Endowment for the Arts has had strong pushes for defunding or dissolution, notably within the year 1981 and the Ronald Reagan administration. Reagan pledged to completely eliminate the NEA within 3 years, but thankfully this didn't happen. There was also another push from 1989 to 1990 to cancel funded performances by the NEA and defund the entire endowment. In 1995 through 1997, there were attacks by House Speaker Newt Gingrich to eliminate the National Endowment for the Arts. And most recently, there was a push by former President Donald Trump, who called for Congress to eliminate all funding in 2017. And he tried again in 2018, but the endowment was sustained, thankfully. The NEA allocates, again, $160 million annually to art and cultural projects, and that sounds like a lot. However, this is dwarfed in comparison to European countries, for example, again, England, the UK, where art and cultural services receive over $1 billion when converted to American currency. Texas has also had extreme budget cuts for public education, which hinders public art education. Between 2011 and 2016, funding cuts by state lawmakers left a 5-year, $5 billion hole for Texas public schools. A University of Texas study analyzed the effects of those budget cuts, finding that despite a growing number of students, many districts were forced to work with less money. And as such, projects were limited or cut, mainly classes considered non-core, such as the arts and music, which left a gap in these students' education. Shown on the right is a graph showing the percent change in state formula funding per student, from 2008 to 2018, with Texas being at a deficit of negative 16.2% per student. Within Oklahoma, which saw even more dramatic budget cuts, a deficit of negative 28.2% per student, public art programs have been dramatically slashed. According to a NPR article from 2019, the budget cuts within Oklahoma further divide more affluent schools and school districts from the more rural, poorer, or underfunded schools. For instance, in 2016, the Oklahoma City Public School District cut 44 art teacher positions, while the Edmond Public School District, which has more funding, cut 0. This creates a disconnect between richer and poorer students, and also gaps in education in both areas. Also in Texas, we have some current events that are affecting higher education, and thus art education. Senate Bills 16, 17, and 18 are a new set of bills introduced to the Texas legislature that are considered by many to be coordinated attacks on Texas higher education. SB 16 would require all public colleges and universities to commit to an environment that promotes intellectual diversity, intellectual inquiry, and academic freedom. This is fine. However, the bill also states that faculty members may not compel or attempt to compel a student enrolled that any race, sex, or ethnicity, or social, political, or religious belief is superior to any other race, sex, ethnicity, or belief. Of course, this isn't happening, and TAMUC even has much of this already in our non-discrimination clause. However, the looseness of the term may not compel or attempt to compel could and would greatly limit the academic freedom of professors according to what they are able to teach. Art tends to push the boundaries of society, so this would be detrimental into what art and what artists are able to be taught. SB 17 would require the Board of Regents to approve the hiring of all administrative positions within institutions and would require board approval for all courses in core curriculum and all postings of tenured faculty positions. This limits the self-governance of universities, which essentially function as small towns. Additionally, this bill would prohibit all funding for DEI offices and initiatives. As previously discussed, art gives underrepresented populations ways to speak out and to frame their messages. So to eliminate DEI initiatives would harm art projects and programs in addition to many other areas of campus. Lastly, SB 18 would deny the possibility for all tenure for university faculty in Texas, appointed after September 1st, 2023. Tenure was designed to protect academic freedom, so to eliminate it would greatly limit the amount of professorships sought at Texas universities and limit the quality education that universities in our state can provide. As someone who has the goal of becoming a tenure professor, this is a huge barrier to my future career and would likely force me and others like me out of Texas. This is a huge problem with many years of history. So what can I do? Well, as a one person, I can advocate for arts and art education, and I can educate on the meaning and necessity of the arts within our society. I would also like to get involved in local government, depending on where I end up, to ensure that programs and art efforts within those communities can be made a priority. I can also apply for grants and scholarships to further my own art experience and inspire others. But what prepares me for all of that? So I've always had art in my life, and I have a background with art. I grew up going to art museums and attending performances at the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, and I became involved with photography at the age of 11 with tiny little camcorder. Attending college within such a rural space as Commerce, Texas has certainly defined my artist focus and shaped how I view the world with my art. Being that rural areas typically receive less funding and less funding for the arts, this is very applicable to me, and I have passion and drive for this topic. At a collegiate level, I've been involved with the Student Government Association for several years now, and I most recently served as the Vice President Senate Chair. This opened the door to the inner workings of higher education and gave me a passion within higher education and the ability here to assist in making a difference here at TAMUC. Through SGA, I was also given the opportunity to serve on the Student Service Fees Committee for 2 terms. This committee allocates millions of dollars to organizations and departments across campus, such as the entire Department of Student Affairs, the entire Office of Student Engagement, the music department, the theater department, much of agriculture, and the university gallery, in addition to the counseling center, student health services, and more. Serving on this committee was incredibly informative, and it further opened my eyes to how even at a collegiate level, when enrollment levels are down, which they are, areas of campus, especially the arts, struggle. I was also able to take several classes that helped give me background to this issue and give me skills to help tackle this issue. One of them was HC 497, Public Art in the US. This class was taught by Dr. Emily Newman, and it gave me valuable information about the worth of public art projects within America. both as beauty and things to admire, but also as a way to convey important messages. I learned much about how public art can be used to educate and inspire. The class culminated with each student designing a public art piece of their own and writing a research paper about how public art can affect society. Another class that really inspired my worldview and my art and gave me background was my UNCO 1301 course, my very first, or one of my very first classes here at Commerce. This class was taught by Dr. Andrew Baker, and it was called Finding a Place in Public Space. In this class, we learned about city infrastructure and how public spaces can improve the sociological conditions of society. Like I said, it greatly shaped my worldview, and with my worldview, my art. My honors college capstone definitely influenced this as well. I was fortunate enough to study abroad last year with the honors college. We traveled to Germany, specifically Munich and Berlin, and we ended in Paris, France, with a day trip to Omaha Beach in the north. When I was there, I gained not only global experience and context, but I was also able to experience art abroad. Seeing the vast amounts of art within the museums there was astounding. On the top right is a photograph of me at the East Side Gallery, where artists paint large works on the remaining sections of the Berlin Wall. My major, also being interdisciplinary, has given me experience within many different areas, as my concentration is popular culture studies, which the arts fall underneath. This, paired with my photography minor giving me additional art context, and my Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion certificate, allows me to view and approach the world with an open yet clear point of view. However, there are still some steps that I need to take. This fall, I will be attending graduate school at the University of North Texas. I'll be working on my master's in fine arts with a concentration in studio art, which is a terminal degree in the art field. I'm very excited about that. Through grad school and by personal involvement and investment, I plan to stay involved within the art world. Art is always growing and changing, and I need to grow and change along with it in order to keep up. As mentioned before, I would like to run for city council or be on some facet of local government to ensure the appreciation of art and cultural initiatives, whether programmatic in nature or permanent, such as public art pieces. All of these experiences will allow me to take the next step for myself and my goal of gaining a professorship as an art educator. Here are my sources, and thank you. I would ask any questions. This is virtual. You can shoot me an email. If you have my phone number, feel free to do that as well. Cool. Thank you so much.